Well, hello, everybody. It's a very special episode today for us. Well, it's off schedule, but it's special not because of that. It's special because we have a very special guest, Sandy Greenberg. Many moons ago, Jeff and I worked with Sandy in our days on Oreo. And Sandy back then was a very successful agency executive. And then, with her partner and best friend, she co founded an independent agency that subsequently won all kinds of awards, did spectacular job. And overall, Sandy is a complete boss lady, and we're very happy to have her on the podcast. So, Sandy, please reappear. Okay, she disappeared. But when she reappears, okay, please do reappear.
Oh, no.
Hands. So we can.
All right, I'm back.
Hi, guys.
Okay, Sandy, you liked your introduction so much, I will have to do it again. No, I will not. So now you just have to tell us what's on your mind.
Wow. How about tariffs, you guys? Tariffs are on my mind. I think they're on everybody's mind. And, I know I have a lot of clients who I got 2 letters in a week of very senior clients, sort of one canceling a certain program and another one saying, I can't go to dinner with you because I'm in tariff hell. And so we've got all these, business people trying to make a plan and figure out how the tariffs are going to, impact their business. And it's on top of their day jobs, right? So they've already got a job. Everybody we know, right, in business is already incredibly busy and incredibly stressed and cannot fit one more thing in. And suddenly they've got a big question mark of like trying to figure out all the different ways, both, by the way, could be positive, could be negative. The tariffs are going to impact their business. So that's on my mind.
So when it comes to marketing in an uncertain world, and how do you counsel people to deal with uncertainty? Because frankly, watching the market and the tariff changes and whatever, I don't think there is any market certainty for a very long time.
I know, it's I don't have any genius answer. I'm in the advertising world, and often when clients, corporations, brands face really difficult financial times, the first to go is advertising. So you can try to talk to them and show them cases that people who continue to, invest in their brands do well. Just like you don't want to pull your money out of the stock market, you want to stay the course. But that is not always doable, right? Because clients have bosses who have bosses who have bosses, and decisions are made. So, honestly, it's sort of the worst one was COVID, because speaking of uncertain, nobody's ever seen anything like that, right? And we were lucky because as a business, we had a lot of clients who were in food and packaged goods, and food and packaged goods did great in COVID. We now have Princess Cruises, but we didn't have a travel company. Travel companies were zero. Hotels were zero in COVID, right? So we're in packaged goods and foods, and we'll see. I mean, they're good categories to be in because you got to eat. But as we know, clients are afraid by competitors and private label. So people tend to go to private label when the economy is not doing well. So, just try to stay the course and be aggressive, I guess. Make sure that you're investigating all aspects of.
And Sandy,
sorry, Elena, what did you say?
Oh, you started kind of answering my question, because I was going to ask you, you are an entrepreneur yourself, and you are a boss and the CEO, and you have a business to run, right? So with all these moving pieces, including client moving pieces, how do you steer the agency's course?
Yeah, again, there's no, you try to do everything you can to to save money, to watch your money, to not put your money into risky things. And, pitching becomes more difficult at risky times because a pitch is a gamble and you don't know what's going to happen. So in a way, you could say just spend your money on your existing clients and grow them. But unfortunately, again, because some of that is out of your hands and one of your big clients may stop spending, you do have to keep trying to bring in more revenue to cover yourself. But yeah, just try to stay the course, not flip out.
So I would love to hear, Sandy. I mean, we sort of started to move into this entrepreneurship kind of role, and that was the title of the episode. But I'd love to hear from you. What was it like going from many, many years in like big, you were at big agencies, whatever, going out on your own? And what were the sort of lessons you had to learn, sort of going through that process?
Mm-hmm. Jeff, it's a wild question for me because so many people say, like, so we've been in business for 14 years, and that in New York advertising life must be about 30, right? And yet I never thought I was entrepreneurial, and I never thought I wanted to do my own thing. For many years, when we were at FCB, our people in our group and our colleagues and our clients would say, you should start your own business. And we would always say, no, we really have no interest. We're not entrepreneurial. We like staying in the big agency world and have no interest in all that stuff of starting your own business. But what happened with us is we became so dissatisfied with sort of the big holding company world that we didn't want to do it anymore. We were done with it. So that left starting your own business. And now 14 years later, I can say, well, I actually love having my own business. I love being an entrepreneur. I don't want to do anything other than that. I don't want to have any bosses. I'd rather go down with my own decisions. But what I will tell you is it wasn't like I had a vision. It wasn't like, because you read a business book and you're like, you need to have a vision. What do you want to do? And plan your business plan. And what's your 5-year plan? And what's your 10-year? I had none of it. And, what I think when you say what was it like, what it was like was, and the other thing is Terri and I are both creative people. There's very rarely an ad agency. I don't know any that were formed with two creatives, right? No account person, no strategist, no CFO. And so there were basically almost everything there was to do other than create the campaign. We had to ask people. So we called people we knew and asked a lot of questions. And, sort of now 14 years later, I don't get scared when something comes up that I don't know how to do anymore. I'm not like when you first start a business, almost everything you don't know how to do. And so you have to figure out how to do it, right? And there's also a tendency to say, well, we don't really do that. We do this. But then I learned that often you recommend other people to do things and they don't do them as well as you did. And you can learn to do it. So now when things come up that we don't know how to do, I'm not scared anymore. And when people are like, who work for us say, but we don't know how to do that. I'm like, yeah, well, we didn't know how to start a business either. So we'll learn. You just have to learn.
Yeah,
so I actually want to add a little bit of a perspective to this story, Sandy, if you allow me. And to me, I think you and Terri exemplify client centricity and true creativity. And even though you say, yes, we didn't know how to do various different, like the commercial things on how to bring our creative work to life, you had amazing relationships with clients and you delivered amazing work to these clients. And the clients probably, I'm guessing, so please correct me, said, well, I don't know that. I don't care that you don't know how to like bill us for the campaign, right? You come up with an amazing campaign. Bill me whatever is fair. I don't know, but please elaborate on that one.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because that you just sort of hit the nail on the head, which is I was at lunch with somebody today and I told them that when we started our business, we would have lots of freelancers come into our company, big names, multiple award-winning, big people, famous campaigns, and they would say, I always dreamed of having my own agency. How did you do it? Because I've never been able to do it. And we always say, well, we had client relationships. And so it's interesting what you're saying, Elena, which is that we had a talent for having relationships with clients, and then they would go to the next place and hire us again and go to the next place at FCB, but they would come for us. And
Right.
so while we didn't know how to write a scope of work, and while we didn't know how to bill, and while we didn't know how to do all the millions of things, we actually had the most precious thing of all, which is clients to call.
So
Yeah.
do you
Yeah,
find that
because that
most of
is,
your
most people don't have that.
Right.
Sandy, do you find that most of the clients that you're still bringing in are through relationships you've already formed, are through word of mouth referrals, or do you actually, because Jeff and I always talk about, we've started our marketing and business development agency, and we always talk about this concept of a trust funnel and building trust, and in other words, building those
Yeah.
relationships over time. Do you find that you're needing to do that as well, or are you doing that as well, creating the new relationships, and how does that work?
Yeah, we have to, right? But what's interesting? I would say that number one, somebody says one of these days you're going to run out of relationships because the people you're going to, everyone who retires and blah, blah, blah. But not yet. And but yet at the same time, yes, we get calls from consultants to pitch business that we don't know anybody. Those are always the longer shots, right? Because you don't have a client at the top who knows you. You don't have any in, but we win pitches when we know no one. So, but what I would say is, I do wonder, I don't know that we would have been here for this long if we just had, and look at all the agencies that close, right? If you just have going after new people, that's costs a lot of money, costs a lot more money than, let's say, and even like recently, we pitched an account called Welch's Sparkling Juices. And it was interesting because we walked in and the CMO was like, I knew Mike Branstetter from
Yep.
Kraft, had heard about us from Mike Branstetter, knew John Gingo from Kraft, had heard about us. So he's a little younger of a generation. Let's say he's 10 years younger. Maybe he's more. If you're listening to this, God forbid I'm getting your age wrong, but he's probably 15 years younger than some of the people that we know that are running companies and CEOs now, right? But we have a reputation. So I think when you go this trust thing that you're talking about,
Right.
you build this reputation in the industry and you hope people have heard of you and your reputation gets around, because we always say the most important thing you have in business is your reputation.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say this. So Eric and I were out talking with a client, or a prospective client at the time, I guess, probably like last summer or something. And we're talking to this guy, and he says, "What I need is more brothers-in-law," and that's sort of the way we've always thought about it. Is you need to create how to like I need more brothers-in-law that can, that have connections and know people, whatever. And so it's a lot of it is just how do I? It's not that you're never going to need brand new people. It's just that you have to bring them into that circle and create that connection. It'd be fascinated. I actually was at a fascinating networking event last night, where this guy basically sets up a dinner and just invites people that he thinks will have an interesting conversation to a dinner and whatever. And so I just met
That's great.
and I loved it. But I wonder, what is like, do you do any of that kind of like, what is your sort of go-to approach to networking and building those new relationships? Do you have a go-to approach?
Not really. We have new business prospect list of who would we like to work with? Do we know anyone there? How can we get to them? And then, with the clients that we do have, we just try to stay as close as we can and be as successful as we can, because yes, it is about going to dinner and lunches and stuff, but in the end it isn't. In the end, it's about how the business is doing. And we really do pride ourselves on caring about the business and want to be business partners, not just an ad agency that you call like a vendor. And so, you know, you just have to constantly be reaching out to people, staying in touch with people and trying to meet new people.
Absolutely.
But like,
let
you
me-
know, I'm at Revlon right now. I was just going to say I'm at Revlon right now, and a consultant led this pitch. We pitched Revlon against, I think, 4 other agencies, and we won. And so all these clients are new. None of them are from a past life, but you know, Geraldine Brigg is the president, and you know, I've only known her for a year, but I feel like I've known her for 10. You know, you just find a connection. You need to find a person that is similar to you. Like we tend to be very straight shooters, and just like to say it the way it is, and we get along better with people like that. I think if you're a person that needs sort of a more passive aggressive person to be dealing with, you're probably not going to like me, because I need lessons in passive aggressive. I always say I'm just aggressive. I say whatever, you know, whatever I think, for the most part, hopefully in a rather appropriate manner, or I would not have any clients anymore. But you know, you just keep
we are
looking for
aggressive.
like-minded people.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
going to
What,
ask you,
excuse me?
Sandy, I was going to ask you about some of the very cool and fun sort of industry campaigns you do. And I want to reference a bit of an oldie called Free Droga, an old campaign which you guys did on a, I don't know, what a competitor agency, I guess, that got sold, right? And that was flying up in the sky in cans. The type of campaigns that industry publications pick up and spin it on LinkedIn and we all read about. Does that bring business, or does that bring talent recognition? Does that bring industry recognition? Like, what is the tangible impact of that very, very cool work?
Yeah, I think it is a number of things. I guess the highest at the top of the level, it's building your reputation and building your, you know, your reputation, and then that affects the talent. That I think Free Droga did more for us in terms of bringing talent to us and having other agencies respect the hell out of us. I don't know that any clients, we got a couple of calls, literal calls from clients that were like, what the, from Free Droga. But, you know, it also is fun, Elena. You know, you really can't, sometimes as an agency, you just need to do some fun stuff. And it's like, it makes you feel creative, and it makes you happy, and you're your own client. So you have to have the courage to do it. And by the way, I would say that when we did Free Droga, I didn't sleep. And we, because we had just won, Nutella, we had just won a Ferrero Rocher, a bunch of Ferrero business. We had just won Sanofi business, and we were doing really well. We were hot. And so there was an aspect of me of, what am I doing? Why are we taking a chance right now? This is just stupid. Why don't I just leave well enough alone? But we ended up having the courage to do it, and I'm really glad we did. But I was nervous.
But it's interesting, because I'm going to draw a connection between that point you just made and a point you were making earlier about, you know, sort of speaking your mind to clients and whatever. And I think it's, you know, it's interesting, and I think we actually find it refreshing in this world these days when somebody is willing to actually speak the truth, right? Because it's so, especially like when you're the president of a company or whatever it is, there's so few people that are willing to tell you what, you know, they really think. There's all this politics and all this air cover and all these people trying to hide, you know, whatever. And so I think it's refreshing, I think. And so I think it's interesting, that connection between, you know, sort of speaking your mind and speak, you know, to the world, and speaking your mind to the president of the company that you're looking at. But I mean, I think, and I think that's, you know, I think back to like our you know, our days working on Nabisco and Oreo and so forth. I think that was what I think people just loved about working with you and Terri, was just this, you know, sense of, hey, they're going to tell us like it is, and that is that is so valuable and unusual. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that was that I sort of drew that parallel as you were talking.
I like it. I really like it. I really like it, Jeff. And you know what's interesting about it? I think that's why we left the big agency world, because you can't do that. It's a gift of entrepreneurship. It's a gift, right? And it's something I value really highly. I'm gonna speak my mind. I'm gonna stay what we believe. I'm gonna stand for what we believe, and nobody can say that I can't. And it's a gift, honestly. And you can't take that for granted, because there's so much going on where people can't speak for things or can't speak their mind without risk of retribution or whatever. So far, we've been able to speak our minds and stand for what we want to stand for. And that's why I would never go back.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. It's fascinating even to look at how much people edit what they even post on LinkedIn or whatever, because what if my company sees it and whatever. So I'm totally with you.
Oh yeah.
It's a challenging world where you say something that you think is totally reasonable, and people hold it against you. And I'm not going to dive into like my little sort of LinkedIn trauma or whatever, but right now, but
oh no, okay.
but it is interesting. Like you can literally say things in this world that get that are perfectly reasonable and perfectly right things to say, and companies hold it against you because they're like, you're making the company look bad or whatever it is. Well, let me do this. This is about the point in the episode where we like to have ChatGPT ask some questions. ChatGPT is on fire today. I mean, it is like coming up with really funny ones, but I always like to ask my other guests, I like to ask, would you like an absurd question first or a thought-provoking question first?
Let's go with the absurd.
All right. Let's see. Absurd. All right. It's not that absurd, but we'll go with it. It says, when you need to sound creative, but you haven't had coffee yet, what's your go-to jargon word that buys you time?
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, Jeff, you cut out. Say it one more time.
All right. I'll say it one more time. It was, where did I lose it? When you need to sound creative, but you haven't had coffee yet, what's your go-to jargon word that buys you time?
Oh my God!
Don't say synergy. That can't be it. Right?
How about let's just say go away. Let's just say go away.
Go away. I'm not there yet.
Come back when I'm caffeinated.
Yeah.
All right, here's the other question, which was maybe a little more thought-provoking. And it was, which ad trope needs to retire immediately, and which one are you secretly still in love with?
The ad trope that needs to retire immediately are 6-second ads. And the one that what was the first question?
The first one was,
what am I secretly still
in love with? Yes.
Yes. Oh, what am I in love with? Ad trope?
Yeah. Secretly
taglines.
Okay.
Taglines. Well, I think taglines are just such a steering principle for everything. And you get into a lot of conversations, especially on a 6, you're going to drop the tagline, right? You don't have time for anything. So there's just such worship for short content that's cheap and it's a mark of being modern and contemporary, but it's just, okay. So I wish it would go bye-bye. And taglines we should keep forever.
Yeah.
A great one, and they're rare.
So given that we are asking AI for questions, I'm going to ask the obvious next question about AI, which is, how are you feeling about AI? And, do you understand that some of us use AI all the time on this call? So don't be too mean, but I'm just curious, where do you land on the AI and marketing spectrum of, where do you think it's going? Do you think it's pure evil? Do you think it's a tool? Do you think it's the best thing to ever happen?
I mean, I guess I think it's fun and helpful. You know, I like ChatGPT. I like having some help sometimes quickly with how to, either research something or write something. Um, for me personally, tons of work coming out of our place, art directed by Midjourney for animatics and test spots, and so I am not on the scale of, and let's just hope it's maybe I'm just not smart enough, but I'm not in the like, oh my God, I'm terrified. The world's
Right.
over. We're going to all be replaced. Part of the world. Because so far, by the way, I do want to say so far, I haven't had any luck. But if I said taglines are my favorite, I constantly do chat GBT when I'm working on stuff, I put it in and tagline that says this or whatever. I've never gotten a good one.
That's it. And so it's
Interesting.
interesting, but does it ever spur new thoughts for you? Like, is it a good brainstorming partner? Did we lose you?
Sandy, you're muted.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we lost your
You-
sound. There we go.
Now
I'm
you're
back.
good.
oh, all right. No, I was
Yeah.
asking about. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd rather talk to one of our creative people, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
than if it was a brainstorming thing or let's come up with ideas. I think I'd do better in 5 minutes than I would an hour with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
Well,
the other thing about ChatGPT is half the time it's wrong.
right.
Have you ever asked it for a bio of you?
Oh, yeah, and it gets totally made up.
yeah,
I
just
do
like
pretty well.
just like in agriculture.
In
Yeah,
my case, I do pretty well because there is only one other, Elena Putilina, and she works for Tupperware, and I know about her. So if I can battle over the Tupperware piece with ChatGPT, I'm pretty good. But for anybody who is like John Smith, that's gonna be
So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't spend at least a minute or two on one of my favorite taglines of all time, and I'm sure Elena will agree, and Sandy, I suspect you agree as well, which was Milk's favorite cookie. So this is, I always think about this as like one of the highlights of my career, but just an amazing campaign. But to your point about taglines, I mean, there was so much, there was a lot of thought in the strategy behind it, but the tagline captured the whole strategy. You didn't like, it was in the line. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting. So it kind of remains my favorite, by the way. I think it means a lot that it's still on the package 25 or 30 years later. But yeah, Milk's favorite cookie came about because at the time, for the first time ever, Oreo was being assaulted sort of with all kinds of problems on the health, regarding health. It was the poster child for childhood obesity. It was, that there were trans fats at the time. So there was a lot of negatives, and basically people stopped walking down the cookie aisle. So we were told, like, you need to come up with an idea or you're going to lose your money, because it was really a bad time at Nabisco. And miraculously, I saw a show on CNN that kids were eating alarming rates. And so I thought, wow, Milk has been in the brand's arsenal forever. And why don't we just raise its prominence just a little? And then we wrote concepts, right? All the way to, it's a way to get your kid to get calcium, to less, to less, to less, to the one that won was something like, one Oreo can make 8 ounces of milk disappear. And that sort of was just the right touch. And
Yeah.
it turned the business around in like 3 weeks. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was an amazing story. Great people, you guys, and so many, the best people. All the best people were there.
Yeah. It was definitely, like I said, a highlight of my career. Super fun to work on, and to sort of have a front row seat to all of that great strategy and thinking and so forth. And by the way, something that I've carried along with me for the rest of my career, this idea that fundamentally you have to create usage occasions with your advertising if you really want to drive if you really want to drive usage, you have to talk about usage, not just be like, hey, look at this cool product or whatever. That's always been one of my takeaways, having spent years and years in the food business. And so, I don't know, learned so much from that. It was very cool.
Speaking of learning so much, I want to bring up another interesting topic, and that is your campaigns for Disney princesses and teaching girls leadership. And I have two daughters, and we've seen every single Disney princess movie. And I kind of watched it out of a corner of my eye. And then I saw your ads, and I think it may have been the social. I don't remember what format it was, but I was like, oh my God, there is like a very distinct positioning that there is empowerment of girls, and there is take a stand, and there is be strong. So that actually too, that was your work that made a big impact, not just on me, but on my household. So please talk to us about that.
It's interesting because so now as we're talking about taglines, I just want to say the Dream Big Princess, which is our campaign for a Disney princess, was maybe second to Milk's Favorite Cookie, but I have all the love in the world. And as a career assignment, it was up there in the best things we've ever worked on, because you've got Cinderella and Snow White and Merida and Moana and Tiana. And these are characters that are, iconic in our lives. And basically, there was a lot of, as women became more empowered, the Disney princesses, there were some image issues with moms, in the sense that moms really wanted their kids, their girls, to grow up on the princesses the way they did, but they had worry or concern that the princesses weren't going to teach them good life lessons, right? It was going to be about find Prince Charming and wear a pretty dress. And so what we did was everyone at the agency watched the Disney princess movies. And like anywhere you went on any screen, there was a princess movie. And what we discovered was at the heart of every film, there's a story where a princess inspires a little girl. Well, no, while a princess, an inspiring moment. So if it's Merida, let's say, gosh, now I got to get back into this. She was very, very brave. And Moana, explored the world, went out to sea. And Cinderella never gave up. Snow White made new friends and the animals. So we found values, and we turned the whole thing around and basically said, for every girl, there's a princess to show her it's possible. For every girl who wants to be brave, there's a princess to show her it's possible. And we sort of imbued the princesses with values, but they were really from the story. So it goes into positioning, right, where you always say, most likely it's in your DNA, but you didn't see it. And most likely, if it's an iconic brand, there's something in your DNA that's just ready to be turned in a new direction. And that's what we did with Disney. Everything was there. We didn't make anything up. We just turned it around. And most importantly, Disney was very committed to creating a new generation of princesses that were more empowering. So if Disney hadn't walked the walk with Rihanna and Moana and new princesses, and had just kept living back, in the 50s, the idea wouldn't have worked. But I'm really really, really proud of that work. Thank you for saying something about it.
Awesome. Well, Sandy, we have as always, this half an hour always flies by, and before we leave, we like to always go around and have everybody say one thing, and leave our audience with one thing. It can be anything, it can be something you've already talked about, it can be something new that you didn't have a chance to talk about. But and then we always make our guests go first. It's kind of a mean thing I like to do. So, Sandy, what is one thing that you would like to leave our audience with?
I would say, don't discount your ability to be entrepreneurial and start your own thing. Just because you haven't thought about it doesn't mean you can't do it. And don't expect to have all the answers.
That's an awesome one, Sandy. And before I give mine, what is the best way for people to reach out to you or to Terri and Sandy if they want to learn more?
My email is Sandy, SANDY, at Terri, TerriSandy.com.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to sort of take a trip down memory lane and have this conversation and reconnect with you here. But I think the thing that I'm going to walk away with, or the one thing that I want to leave people with, is to build on your point about being entrepreneurial, and also, and to really point out, like, you have to be willing to, sort of take a risk, be bold, and be willing to fail in order to really truly succeed. And so I think that's the takeaway I will leave folks with, and I will pass it over to Elena.
Yeah, similar here. I would say my biggest takeaway is look at Sandy and don't be afraid to be true to yourself and to show the world your special talent, because your special talent will shine and you would be hopefully as successful. So that's my lesson.
Yeah, fantastic, Elena. So mine is going to be, because these are new stories for me, whereas Jeff and Elena, obviously you lived through the Oreo story, and you know these stories, but these are new to me. So the thing that kind of really strikes me is this whole concept of taking, this, as you put it, Sandy, it was in the DNA of Oreo. It was in the DNA of the princesses, and then turning it inside out, the thing that was the problem, turning it into a strength. That is fascinating and really cool. And you've done it on such amazingly, frontline brands. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. As I said, it flies by, and we could probably talk to you for hours, but we have to wrap up. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy.
Well, thank you, guys. It was so good to see you guys.
Likewise. It's great to catch up.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Bye-bye.